Welcome to the Financial Flow. Please like and subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay up on our latest videos. Today, we're going to talk about the economic thought. To understand these economic theories, we'll need to go back in time a little. In 1798, a British economist named Thomas Malthus argued that because population growth outpaced food production, humans would eventually run out of food and starve. You may be wondering why some people refer to economics as the incorrect science. Malthus, however, was incorrect. Tragically incorrect. The world population has increased from 1 billion in his time to more than 7 billion today, and it turns out that the famines we've witnessed are mostly man-made disasters, with little to do with our ability to produce food. However, Malthus was writing at the start of the Industrial Revolution and did not take into account advances in technology, agricultural production, or transportation. So, based on the information he had, he was somewhat correct, but he was still incorrect. Economic theories are being proven, disproven, and revised all the time. The problem is that when these theories are incorrect, millions of people can suffer. Consider Malthus. Economics is not a precise science. It seeks to draw conclusions about human behavior without the use of laboratories or perfect control groups. Economic theories reflect various attitudes toward human nature, which are likely to change over time. Adam Smith, a Scottish philosopher, was the father of modern economics. His book, The Wealth of Nations, was published in 1776. It was structured debate about production, markets, and economic theory, and it was hugely influential. Smith proposed that a person acting in their own self-interest could end up serving the common good. He also supported free trade. Many countries at the time imposed high tariffs to protect domestic manufacturers at the expense of trade. A generation later, British economist David Ricardo expanded on Smith's ideas by proposing the theory of comparative advantage, which holds that two people or countries can both benefit from trade, even if one can produce more of everything. Everyone benefits when both parties concentrate on their strengths and then trade. Anyway, the field of economics grew, advancing ideas such as private property and free markets until the Communist Manifesto appeared in 1848. Rather than focusing on individual behavior, German philosophers Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels examined economic classes and argued that the conflict between workers and property owners explained history. Workers would eventually overthrow their bosses, ushering in a new stateless and classless system known as communism. Marx then published Das Kapital. Marxist economics spawned political movements that challenged Adam Smith's view that individual self-interest serves the common good. As a result, there are two major camps: free market capitalism, which advocates private property; communism, collective ownership of the means of production. Despite Marx's challenge, market-based economic theory dominated until the end of the 19th century, thanks to contributions from French, British, and American economists. This school of thought is known as classical economics, and it was encapsulated in a book. Alfred Marshall, an English economist, published Principles of Economics in 1890. Marshall organized into fine concepts we still use today, such as supply and demand and marginal utility, which we'll get to shortly. But as capitalism spread around the world, so did Marxist movements. This battle for hearts and minds, combined with political and social unrest in Europe, resulted in the establishment of the Soviet Union in 1922. The Great Depression crushed the market economies of the world's richest countries as communism was maturing in the Soviet Union. It was also a crushing blow to classical economics. Smith and Marshall's theories didn't say much about how something like this could happen or how to fix it. In his 1936 book, A General Theory of Money, Interest and Employment, British economist John Maynard Keynes proposed new answers, effectively launching the field of macroeconomics. Keynes argued, along with John Hicks, that market economies do not self-correct quickly because prices and wages take time to adjust. They claimed that during recessions, the government must intervene with monetary and fiscal policy to boost output and reduce unemployment. Keynes was not a communist supporter, but his ideas directly challenged those of classical economists who saw government intervention as universally harmful to the economy. Keynes' ideas when combined with the ever-present Marxist critique, paved the way for increasing government involvement. Many nations have pursued a political and economic ideology known as socialism since the Great Depression, even though socialist ideas and policies have existed since the 19th century. In most cases, these economies permit private property and markets while also allowing for government ownership of industry, extensive regulation, and large public programs such as universal healthcare. Scandinavian countries such as Norway and Sweden adore socialist policies. Many of the socialist ideas have now been rejected by the United States, but the US government, or at least the economists who advise politicians, are clearly in favor of using Keynesian economic policies when the economy is in trouble. However, as socialism and Keynesian economics gain popularity, other groups continue to exert pressure. In support of private property and free markets, the Austrian School of Economics was frequently the most vocal, argued that heavy state involvement has never produced the desired results, and that regulation and government tinkering is a problem, not a solution. The Austrian school today argues that the economy is simply too complicated to manipulate, rejecting nearly all forms of fiscal and monetary policy. The Austrians carried on the backlash against government intervention in the United States, advocated privatization of many functions previously performed by the government, famously proposing school vouchers and economic deregulation, rather than an inherent flaw in capitalism. Friedman's and his followers' theories at the University of Chicago became known as the Chicago School of Economics. Friedman's ideas gained traction in the 1970s. At the time, inflation was skyrocketing while output was stagnant. Do you remember stagflation? A difficult combination for Keynesian economics to reconcile. Some macroeconomists used Chicago School insights to argue that these events refute Keynesian economics. Building on Friedman's ideas, another economic theory gained traction: monetarism. Monetarists are concerned with price stability and argue that the money supply should be gradually increased predictably to allow for consistent growth. Around the same time, another theory known as supply-side economics or trickle-down economics entered the mainstream. Supply-side economists advocated deregulation and tax cuts, particularly for corporations. Today's mainstream economics incorporates ideas from both classical economics, such as monetarism and Keynesian economics. However, debates about how and when to implement policies continue, and keep in mind that these are more than just intellectual classroom squabbles. Millions of people are affected by these policies. The various reactions to the 2008 global recession are a good example of this. Some economists advocated for Keynesian policies, such as deficit spending. Other economists advocated the more traditional approach of reining in excess spending to reduce budget deficits, a strategy known as austerity. Believe it or not, economists are still arguing about which of these policies is best and when to employ them. We can all agree on one point. Keynes was correct when he said, "Ideas shape the course of history." So, where will all these economic ideologies and theories lead us in the future? Most countries that once supported strict communism, such as China and Cuba, have transitioned to capitalism. North Korea is the only country that is sticking with it, but they are too isolated to be a true test case for an economic system. However, this does not imply that Marxism is extinct. Many capitalist countries have implemented socialist-style policies. The world's economies appear to be convergent towards the center, but in the end, it turns out that forecasting the future is extremely difficult, especially when dealing with something as complex as the global economy. Remember Malthus' prediction that we'd all starve? We don't know what kind of changes humanity will face in the future, just like Malthus. If history has taught us anything about economic thought, it is that we should be prepared for surprises that will destabilize our current economic models, just as Malthus could not have predicted that we would all be alive today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Have a good one.